Hello. Now we're live. I know that. Thank you for being here today. If you feel like you're having deja vu, we have visited with Tim and Michael back, believe it or not, in February of 2021 in their studio in Washington. This time it's under different circumstances. At that point, I had just met Tim and Michael, but I'm delighted that presently I have a wonderful exhibition in the gallery of their work, of their individual work, and of their collaborative pieces. And if you haven't been into the gallery to see it and you live in the Toronto area, I hope you won't miss the exhibition. So their work is very distinct and very different, but they do share three major commonalities. They are both co-directors of the Washington Glass School in Washington, D.C., where they have worked together for 20 years, which in itself is pretty outstanding. So congratulations. They have both received Fulbright scholarships. And at the same time, it was in 2012 that they received their Fulbrights, and that was in England at the University of Sunderland. And then thirdly, they are both avid readers and storytellers. And you see it in their own work and you see it in their collaborative work. So I think that's pretty amazing. And of course, not to leave out the charm and the sense of humor that they each have. So I would say that's where they are the same. What I'd like to do today is to, rather than me tell you about the work or tell you the stories, I think it's much more important to hear it from Tim and from Michael. So I would like to introduce them to you again. We have Michael on the left and we have Tim on the right. There's something else that I thought that about just now is I like, Tim, when you always say that you're a time traveler.
It's true.
That really fascinating, and that you go from the Victorian era through so many centuries into Greek and Roman times. I think that's pretty cool. So I thought I'd bring that up.
That was based in me reading Jules Verne incessantly as a child. And so when Jules Verne came up, he kind of started the steampunk aesthetic where, you know, the Nautilus was fitted with many instruments that had nothing to do with his time and place. So I always thought it would be spectacular to have my stuff, you know, also look like it belonged on the Nautilus. So that took me from the 19th century. And then, of course, my technologies take me well into the 21st century. So I kind of move. And then Justinian's Oculus goes back to 541 AD. So I kind of slide. I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. But you too, Michael, you're a storyteller, aren't you? Or you see yourself as a storyteller?
Yeah. I do like to have a little bit more of a narrative content to my work. And I like to make images that kind of projects and that the viewer kind of finishes the story. So when they look at it, they bring their own baggage as to what's going on. So I do like to invite investigation within the artwork.
You know, when we look at your drawings or your paintings, there's, I don't know how to explain the women and men, but there's so many questions I might have of them because you're not seeing everything.
Yeah. I want them to have a pensive quality, something that you're saying, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, absolutely, what's in her mind or what's in his mind? I mean, there are some clues, but it really doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah, that's a lot of the story, the imagery that we like to have. Something that's more compelling is where you don't know what's going on, and every time you see it, you have a different take on it then, and different qualities. And working in glass, you have everything about glass. When light hits it differently, you have a different feel about it, and that is one of the beauties of that medium.
Mm-hmm. And how did you actually find each other? The one thing that I didn't mention is that Michael is also an architect. And he lived and worked in Australia for 20 years before he came back to the United States. And why did you suddenly turn to glass, or how did that happen?
Well, in Australia, I was doing a design, and Australia has a very strong glass program that is there. And as an architect, I was doing lobbies for Queensland Rail or the British Consulate, where I was doing the whole wall in cast glass. And an architect, I was specifying it like an architect who doesn't know what the medium actually does. And I'd say, I'd like to do this and this and this, and just write it up as a written spec. And the glass studios I was dealing with said, maybe you should come here before you write what the specifications are. And that's when I started seeing how glass was made. I love the medium even more.
Mhm.
And after 9/11, my wife had said, I think it's time we move back to the US. And if she's going to work for a government, she was working for Queensland government. She said, let's move to the US and work for the United States government. And we moved to DC. And I said, we'll move, but I want to change careers. So I wanted to get out of architecture, and I wanted to go to what I initially wanted to be before I started studying in college, was an artist. And I said, I want to be a glass artist. And my wife said, well, if you can find a way to make a living at it,
Yeah,
sure.
good luck.
And that's where I started doing glass blowing in Baltimore, because I lived way out in suburban Virginia and didn't have a car. And so I'd have to walk a mile, get a bus, ride for an hour, get a metro, go across, go to Baltimore and come back. And that got old real quick. So I had to find a place in DC that did glass. And I just started investigating it. And there was a few shops in DC. And I walked in the studio, and there was Tim. And the way that they approached glass at the Washington Glass School, it was like you're hitting a highlight with sprinkles of confetti coming out. And I'm saying, architectural applications. They were looking at it as a medium and taking the medium outside of itself and really being much more experimental with it. So it was all the things that I would just be saying, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. So,
We started our school purposely as a non-studio glass school, in the sense that at that time, the only studios that were around way back in 1990 and stuff tended to be blowing studios, focusing very much on studio glass. And so I thought, it's time to experiment with this. Let's find out what happens if you have something that's not a blowing studio, that's casting studio, is multidisciplinary with electronics, with metal, with a variety of things. What happens if we started a school and focused on that? What was the worst that would happen? If we go on for a few years, then we could always switch to a studio glass studio if we needed to. But I didn't think we would, and here we are 21 years later, and we have not had to. And we produce a lot of, the more unusual stuff that comes out, and we're happy about it. So,
Well, congratulations. That's something to really be proud of, 21 years together. Wow. And the number of commissions and public art that you've done is, in terms of your individual and personal art and your public art, how do you feel about those two areas? Do you feel like you have split personalities? Do you have a preference?
When we first started it, we got them usually in the very early parts based on my history in DC. So it always was under my name, but I didn't like putting the public art under my name as much, because typically public art is by committee in a way, and that people want to investigate it. They're looking out for the community and they want to somehow change it. So I started, even if I would apply under my name, we would switch it to Washington Glass Studio after that. And they always went along with it afterwards. So once we did that for a couple of years, we didn't have to do my name at all. We could just do it under Washington Glass Studio. And then all ego was taken out. We were used to dealing with committees that wanted to change, people that want to interact. And our biggest strength is having the community actually interact with each of the pieces, so that if it's going to be put in their community, that they were responsible for at least part of it. So it smoothed out beautifully over the years.
So, but do you have a preference, or do you love them equally like you would your children?
There's so many. Right now, my favorites are the walls that Michael and I do, but it's tough. It's like your children. You have favorites, but you don't tell. Anyway, so right now, the ones that Michael and I do together. That's right.
Well, we're able to do sometimes the works that really resemble Tim and my work, and they kind of influence us back and forth, because some of the things you do in public art you wouldn't really use in your own personal artwork, but there are aspects that really makes it extended. I mean, the way that sometimes when I'm working on with the way the lighting is for some pieces, it gives us ideas on how to illuminate our own work and provide different ways of extrapolating it. Our other partner here, there's a third partner here, and that's Erwin Timmers. He does a lot with recycled components and very environmentally conscious elements. So it's kind of nice because he works with glass in a different way, and you start seeing it from different ways that you say, I like that, I'll do it differently, and I'll make it my own. So it does take you outside of your more narrow focus when you're saying, this is how I approach it. And I kind of like that forced ability to consider different options. And that is kind of one of the strengths of working with Tim and in collaboration, is it takes me outside of my own focus on it. Because I can be very, I want to use the word tight, very, very controlled in the piece. And by working with someone else, you're forced to open up and say, it's going to be different because you don't have complete control.
So I guess it would be fair to say your work is very narrative, if anything.
100%. And that was one of the things we decided 20 years ago, that we'd be focused on narrative representational work, that we weren't going to be focusing on abstract. At that time, the world was flooded with abstract. We thought we need to show that there's a different path. Even if it fails, we wanted to try this whole particular path. And now, of course, narrative kind of representational glass is really quite prominent these days. So I guess we did okay with it. It seemed to work out for us well. And also it was really to keep us excited and us interested, to be honest with you. If I'm going to tell a story, it's really difficult for me to have a big chunk of blue glass and make up a story about it. I much prefer actually having a story in mind well before I do anything, and then kind of telling it that way. But that's just a different way. I also love giant chunks of colored glass. It's just not. I like big chunks of colored glass too. I think they're beautiful.
Yes.
It's just I don't want to produce those, but I'd love to own them. But I don't necessarily need to make them.
Right.
There is a thing, though, when you're using glass as a medium, you do have to know technical knowledge. You do have to learn your craft before you can really fully expound on it and use it successfully as a sculptural medium. So you do have to kind of be a nerd at times and understand annealing schedules and firing schedules, but at the same time, balance it with where you're going to take it. How do you put part of yourself in the piece?
I'd also want to say we're about to go through the exhibit, and anyone who has a question, if you put it in the chat box, Sandra's going to keep an eye on it and interrupt me from time to time, which I don't mind at all. So
let me just see if I have a question here, because we're going to start right now.
Oh, no questions yet.
Nothing yet. Oh, you already know. Fine. So let's begin. Daniel is going to be walking us around the gallery with his camera, and we're going to start with, should we start with Michael on the right? Michael,
all right.
Tell us a little bit about your work and about your paintings and the mystery of this particular woman, perhaps. I wonder about her.
Well, the title of this piece is Waiting for Moments That May Never Come. And I'm going to just point out that my images in there is actually made out of crushed glass powder. It's frit powder drawings. And Daniel's zooming in very tight onto the piece, but all of that is actually really finely ground glass that I push around with an X-Acto blade. So that loose powder is on that sheet of glass, and the higher I build the density of the crushed powder, the deeper and darker that image is. So
every line on there is made from him just pushing powder. I've watched him do it for 10 years. I'm in awe. 15 years I've been watching him do this technique. I still am in awe of it. He is, I think, one of the best in the world for this technique, personally.
Well, I'm in awe. I look at his paintings daily, and it's unbelievable to me that he does it with a tool, and that there's no paint. And then what do you do, Michael? They're fired in a kiln. Is that right?
Yeah, I take the drawing, or what I'm calling a drawing, with the loose powder, and I put it in the kiln and I fire it just enough temperature to melt that powder onto the sheet of glass. And I can keep on going back and forth and adding to it. I tend to go with a more controlled color palette for the figure. And in this piece in particular, I really wanted it to be on almost like a deconstructed image and figure, where I'm letting the colors and the patterns really be almost equal to the figure, that her gaze, though, is what's pulling the intensity of the figure back into focus of where she is in that. Otherwise, her image just dissolves into that riot of color and pattern. And really, it's all about a balance of abstractness and figurative.
You can see her eyes. You wonder, something is pulling her emotionally as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so Tim, tell us a little bit about your piece that we're coming up to.
There we go. There you go. Hold it right there, Daniel. That's perfect. All right. So, I work frequently in endless mirrors. And again, I put this kind of beautiful Edwardian frame on it to just kind of pull it back in time. This particular one sold to a lovely woman who has a floral shop in East Hampton, I think. So it's a little sideways there, but it's up. There we go. Oh, there's a nice shot of it. There we go. Thank you, Daniel. I do a lot of these. I used to call these fairy rings. Remember, as kids, you would see a little circle of dandelions or something, and they were called fairy rings. I love the concept of these people visiting us and leaving these fairy rings around. So in these, they're meant to be just beautiful, formal Victorian studies. That it came right out of Nemo's ship. This is straight Victorian study of florals and a small hummingbird, dragonfly. So I love these Victorian studies. Now this one is sold, but I've given Daniel 4 other rings that I'll be working on. And so if anyone likes the rings, there's 4 different color ones and different types of flowers that I'm working on with Daniel. So he has those. But if you notice, if you're looking into that, every single image you see in an endless mirror, they say that's past 13, you're seeing into the next world. And you're seeing 16 in mine. I've counted them each time. So you see 16, it's just the last 3 are indistinct. So you know there's another world. You just can't exactly see what it's going to be quite yet. So this is where your faith comes in after that.
Yeah. So that's also part of that whole time traveler kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a tremendous amount of depth from that. It's a visual trick because it's really not 50 feet deep into that piece. But in the studio, you will have, especially when someone who's just visiting or a delivery guy is stopped in their tracks and they will just say, how is that done? Where is that going through? Is it in the wall? And that kind of surprise and awe is a wonderful thing. And I usually tell them that, yes, we have cut through the wall. It actually is out onto Otis Street, back side of that piece.
Yeah, if Daniel just shows the side of it, you'll see how thick it is. How many inches would that be? There we go.
Exactly 4 inches.
There's 4 inches. There we go. So go to the front again, Dan. And yet we're looking through past 13.
Way past. There you go. Just into the next world.
Isn't that amazing? Okay, well, thank you. So what would you like to look at next? Should we look at Daniel's heading towards Michael's paintings?
Everyone always wants to start with Michael. Let's do it.
There you go.
I don't know that.
And it is all these people, it's their eyes that has the mystery.
Well, the eyes are one of the more compelling things. When you think of a person and their characteristics, the eyes are what really draws you in. And in these pieces, I actually drew on that. And I kind of like that whole concept of taking a formal portrait and making it a lot more contemporary and balancing out the color and pattern. And this is my own little sly nod to John Baldessari, who was the conceptual artist that would also put giant colored circles across the piece. And it kind of makes you look for clues as to what's going on within the piece. So there's 2 pieces that are within this series that I had done, which is the color of shadows and the place between memories. And they both have that kind of feel with that color palette. And I just like that balance of formalism and pop art.
Michael's figures rarely just smile. They're always thoughtful, or they're pondering something, or they're always something interesting in his facial. I couldn't draw like this, much less sift powders into this design.
Beautiful. And the composition, the neck on this woman and the circle that's around her neck.
Beautiful.
And the one
yes.
Yeah, the one in the center is called The Pale Dawn. And the one in that one too, I was working a little bit more architecturally and minimal, where I just have the figure dissolving into the geometric shapes. And that's where I wanted it to really be a balance between, again, realism and abstraction. And I almost want that figure to be, by controlling the color palette, almost being otherworldly and just dissolving away into a smoke field.
This one's so painterly too. It's really gorgeous. So it almost looks like a painting. So whenever we do them, we want to make certain that they're not like crystal clear. I think my mother said if there's a bubble in a piece of glass, it's the most horrible thing in the world. We don't really ascribe to that. We like to see the hand of the maker. We want to see the layers. These be as many as 6 levels deep of Michael's panels.
Yeah.
So we love that depth. We love all the marks of the process. And so they all show there, and they're beautiful.
So I noticed on the first painting, Michael, there are a lot of drops on it, like
Air
why
bubble.
just or air bubbles.
Little tiny bubbles.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
that's
some of it
nice.
is, yeah, some of it is just going to be a happenstance by how that firing was, what kiln I
Okay.
used. And to a certain extent, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't let it go out. It is a thing where I think it just loosens up the drawing just enough that it, again, makes it something that's unusual and not as perfect, you know, in that sense. I'm using the word
For us here, we thought of her as like the underwater girl. I mean, that's what it was so beautiful. She looks like she's just in this little tiny underwater world. So
Actually, I love it. I thought it was intentional.
Oh, I,
It's the first chance
I mean, once I
we did too.
Well, yeah,
Well, we did, not him, but
Yeah.
we did. Right?
I tell people I inject the air bubbles into there with a syringe during the firing process. It's really hot, but it got to be done.
That one just was a lucky, wonderful, happy accident because she does look like this beautiful underwater girl, and all the colors.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think that was a successful thing.
Mhm. Very.
Happy accidents are always.
That's a nice group too, the 3 of them together.
Well, the color palette's very controlled, and so they all work well together.
That's
Okay,
Michael's-
and then I want to know a little bit more about these 2 women.
Okay, these 2 pieces were part of a series, Possibility of a Presentness of Something Else and the Weight of Absence. And I wanted to have something that really celebrated the strength of women. And the way I wanted to have almost like you could see their spirit, their vibration, the life force of them coming through a very large scale image. And when I fired these, I really did focus on the eyes and the lips. And then I also wanted to make the way that they almost had some kind of a sense that you're feeling the texture and the vibration of their spirit or soul, so that you would see that by just doing it with different gradations of shadow.
You know, that vibration is so cool. It really is.
I
They're
love
very,
those vibrating women.
yeah, they're very strong women. You're right. It does show the strength of women.
Thank you for that.
Partial to the one on the left.
And then you're seeing the tarot card series that I had done. And tarot cards are from centuries gone past. I mean, that they've always been from the 1400s, and they usually had nobility and very classical designs, and they use them.
I posed for the one on the left. I just want to
Yeah, in his dreams. But these ones were a contemporary take on those traditional cards. And I like that whole, it was inherently narrative, inherently had a lot of qualities about the imagery, because you look at them for a sense of direction and kind of telling you how to go. And this first card is the Lovers, and that's about finding your other half, what completes you. And I thought it's perfect for.
Irene Frolic is swooning. Oh, thank you, Irene. She's in the chat room swooning away at these guys. All right.
Well, but we all like to know what concepts we should be looking at. The Empress is about strong matriarchs in our history, and these are really part of our culture. And I think that the traditional take on the tarot card for the Empress is about abundance and comfort and enjoying what you already have. So that's how I wanted that image to come across. And the final one, I think, is the Moon, which I had done. And that one is about the unconsciousness and fears of what the future can be. So if you're an architect, you would know the whole archigram movement of walking cities they were developing in the 60s. And then I'm also doing reference to the whole space program from Sputnik on to Skylab. And it's about, also in the tarot, it's about changing negative energies and finding constructive that can be done to change your situation.
You know what I love about the Empress, the one in the center, is it looks like a field of ice skaters. It's so beautiful because you see these couples mostly, and you see them. It almost looks like they're on a beautiful lake of ice. I know it's a very Canadian reference, and see, I since I married a Canadian, I totally got it. But in my mind, that beauty of these people just kind of skating in this giant feel behind it. I just happen to like it a lot.
And it's
I
also,
have a question about her, though. She does not look happy.
well, heavy wears the crown.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
lot
what
of strong decisions that might have to be made. And if the Queen, how often do you see Queen Elizabeth beaming away? I mean, she might have a wry smile and a pleasantry, but she's got a lot on her mind.
There's a weight.
Yeah.
It is a weight.
Most appropriate for this year because it's just her 70th anniversary, isn't it?
The 5th, isn't
Yes.
it?
75th.
Diamond Jubilee.
That's true. Anyway, most appropriate. Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Michael. All right. So here, I'll let Daniel's, he's moving on to Tim. We're going to look at the lenticular wall, and I'm going to let you describe this to everyone.
All right, so let me tell. Thank you so much. I do love that whole wall. Let me describe what lenticulars are. I've taken a lot of people who like my endless mirrors, and they don't have a plug nearby or whatever. For whatever reason, it's tough to put that endless mirror piece into place. It actually is really small. To have something that still has that feel of an endless mirror, but no plug, and to weigh much less, and to be able to hang in these grids was the purpose of that. So I take images from, in fact, if you look at that yellow one in the middle on the right, that's actually the one that we're about to show, an endless mirror that he's about to show. Each of those, as he walks in front, will change. A lenticular is a photo manipulated image of one of my endless mirrors, and I have taken that, as you see as you move and it's changing. I've taken that and taken 3 different photographs of that piece from 3 different angles, and I have printed it on very tiny prisms so that when you're at 45 degrees, you see one image, straight ahead, you see another image, and to the left, you see another image. So as you walk past, you not only get a sense of depth, but you get a sense of movement, and they are beautiful. I mean, I remember when we were kids, we had these little things called Winkies we used to have. Winkies have grown up. This is the adult version of Winkies right here.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're just beautiful.
Thank you so much.
If people coming into the gallery walk by them and they have to walk by them again and again, they're not sure what's happening.
For sure.
There, how'd you get that, Dan? Okay, that's sideways.
We also put them in these beautiful kind of satin black wooden frames that give them a kind of just a very classy feel. So they're very easy to do. You can do 1, you can do 3 in a row, you can do 4 in a grid. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can take those pieces. See, even sideways, it makes sense. It doesn't matter. I mean, there they go. In a way, this is my attempt at abstraction of my own work. So
I would say it's really a pop art feel, though, because these really are eye-catching kind of things. You will always notice that wherever it's shown.
They're very color saturated, which I love. I can also, change colors. I can do things a variety of different ways. I've done a ton of them on commission by, taking certain flowers or whatever colors and making them. So these are the ones I gave Sandra 200 and some images, poor thing. I sent her like a huge file of images. And so
I wasn't sure what to do. So out of those 200 images, I think I chose them all but one. I think when I got to number 8, I said, Tim, I might have choices. You have to pick one for me.
There you go.
Did you pick that blue one? I think you picked the blue one.
Could be. Maybe just to give a little bit of depth in there, a little different color. So they can be, this is 27 images, 9 panels with 3 images each. So there's only another 180 to go.
And we should mention, you can do them in different sizes. I chose them to be this scale because of the size of the room. But if you want to put them over your sofa, you would do them in a much smaller scale.
Depending on your sofa. These are 3 foot by 3 foot or almost 1 meter by 1 meter for Canadians. And so we can also make that in 66 centimeters by 66 centimeters. And another, we can make it any kind of square that we want to do that. We can make them rectangular. I could do one image that is part of all 9 of those. So when you walk in front of them, all 9 become a single image. I mean, there's a lot of ways I can do it. I can scale it to different office spaces or commercial spaces. I can do it there. Or if you have a really tall chinmay, a really tall, ceiling, I can take them up there. So I love these because it's my own work. It's scalable, and I love seeing my own work reinterpreted by me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Really, you should come into the gallery to see this work. It is incredible. There is a question from Dawn who wants to know how large is the kiln you use for the big pieces? What's the largest size you use?
We have a kiln.
We just got a new kiln.
Which, what is it, 4 feet by 3 feet?
I think it's might be 4.5 feet.
4.5 by 3, and then we have another one that is 5 foot by 2.5. We have some large kilns here.
Yeah.
And we have used every square inch in making panels. The one that we have in the Venice Biennale right now, for instance, is 101 inches high, made of components. So it just depends on which way it is. We show a lot. We show a lot of museum shows. We showed a lot of spaces that need them to be larger. So because of that, we have to have quite large kilns for kiln casting. These particular lenticulars do not require kilns at all, which is another nice part about them. So it's a separate part, giving you something equally interesting.
All right. Very cool. That's very good. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. Which is your favorite? Which is your favorite, Sandra?
I'll show you my favorite. Dan, go to the end of this row, the third one. I like the one at the end. Maybe going close to that one.
With the acorns? Oh, yeah.
No, with the acorns, exactly. So we go by that. Love the way that changes.
Those are blackberries.
And I also like the, there. I like that a lot.
That's really pretty. Yeah.
Amazing. Very pretty. And I like the one below it as well. There's a purple one. And then we can just walk over.
I really love the color saturation, so that's what those are meant to be. Okay.
Very saturated, very strong pieces.
Very versatile. We can light them from the back as well if we ever need it. Okay. Oh, yeah. So on these, here we are. So as you look down the tunnel here, especially if you look like through those bees, or those are dragonflies surrounding bees, as you look through, we know that tunnel doesn't exist. That is simply as a kid, we realized that this was an optical illusion. But for me, that means that space is anything we want to make it. The physics or metaphysics of that space belong to us to decide and describe as we see, as we intend. So on this one, I'd read an article that said where bee populations were strong, so too were the dragonfly populations. So in my mind, I pictured the dragonflies guarding over the bees. And I love the thought that dragonflies are guarding bees in their hives. So for me, that's what this is about. The dragonflies, there they are protecting our bees, which we loved. And if you zoom in there again, Daniel, some of the part, if you look over the tails of the dragonflies up close next to the mirror, the depth is, there's another picture. Okay. Oh, there you go. And you take a look, and take a look at the tails. If you go between the two, yeah, they're just beautiful to watch. You'll see such depth because, again, you see the 16 images going down. And each tail you see coming out gives you that depth. That was one of the reasons I pointed them all in, because everyone you see allows you to see that extra depth going down. So, and I just love the colors of these. I love those blue eyes, the green. I just like, sometimes I just love a piece sometimes. I should make one for me.
Yes. Do you have any of your art at home? Any of your work?
My problem is as soon as I make something, it goes somewhere. And so to pull it from that is more than I could stand. So I don't. I should. I really should. My husband wants me to bring something home. I'll have to at some point.
He deserves that.
I totally agree.
How about you, Michael? Do you have any of your artwork at home, your personal work?
I have an early casting piece, mostly because if I would bring home a piece and there was a show that they were looking for a piece, I would sometimes take it. And my wife was saying, how come she never gets it? So in a sense, it's her piece. I gave her a piece and now I can't take it out. Other than that, I do have Tim's work in my house. I have actually a number of artists from our studios represented because as an artist, you can trade for other artwork, and you just kind of have it a different way.
Mhm.
My own artwork, usually I would say I'd rather go to Sandra Ainsley than sit in my house.
So this piece here, as you notice, it's a human heart with wings and that beautiful cast, gorgeous red orange lead crystal. That is also a cast glass field of flowers that surrounds it and the circle. And then that outer beautiful frame, which I just love with all my heart, that we kind of produced here, was cast in polyvitro and the color rubbed into it. So you see all the detail that you can imagine on that. I love the palette on this. Now, this one is made to herald those kind of hidden heroes that we have in our society. For me, I started noticing them when my mom was in hospice. I had people who had AIDS, and the hospice workers were absolute. They didn't do it for any money. They didn't do it for any reason except for they thought it was right. So I absolutely love those hidden workers, the grandmother's watching 6 kids so the mom can work, or the person who brings you pizza during COVID so you don't go out. All those people, they deserve to be noticed and recognized, and that's what this piece kind of feels like to me.
And I'm going to point out that the image is rotated. That
Yeah, it's sideways right now, by the way.
But since it's a round piece, you're kind of seeing the feel of it. But it is a horizontal, the way that is.
Uh-oh.
Close enough. The heart was sideways there, but the right side was the upside. So it was close enough. It was close enough.
Kind of appropriate, and maybe it could be a tribute to the frontline workers from the last couple of years as well.
I mean, all those who kept us safe and, as much as we could be. And so I was happy with that.
So I'm not sure. Dan, do you have something to say?
Here we go. Here we go. Now we're talking.
Okay. I thought you wanted to tell us something.
Now we got to get back to Daniel's screen there.
Just give me one moment.
There we go. Oh, perfect.
Whoa! Extreme. Something happened. He's down.
Daniel's down. Daniel's down. Quick.
Out for the count. As you can tell, we're all in different places. Anyone that's watching us. Okay.
But if you do come up here, you have to go out to dinner with Sandra and her boyfriend, who are so much fun. I cannot recommend it highly enough. So there it is. There it is. There it is.
Right. There we go.
There we go. That's what it should look like. I think you got the idea. And that beautiful green cast glass in the center with that floral field that surrounds it. I love that palette so much. I call that the Italian palette. I use it here a lot. I like it that way.
Okay. And there's a really interesting piece beside it as well.
All right, so let me tell people a little bit about this piece. This piece hung at the Hermitage State Museum in Russia. In fact, it was on the front page of their catalog for a while. Also was at the Boca Raton Museum. This piece is called Justinian's Oculus. And in this piece, I'm describing the correlation between the Emperor Justinian, who lived in 541 AD in Constantinople, and was one of the first recorded people to actually die of what eventually became the bubonic plague. But in 541, it had just started, and while the emperor survived, 1/5 of Constantinople did not. 800 years later, it became the giant Black Plague of Europe. But right then, it was still mild enough to only kill 1/5. This one, by the way, is all cast in lead crystal, as you see there. What happened in that, after all the people died in Constantinople, the emperor said whenever he looked in a mirror, he saw the faces of those people looking back, forcing him to remember them and to acknowledge them. Well, this is my second pandemic. My first pandemic was the AIDS pandemic, where I lost so many people, 12 people in 1 year, for instance. And they all forced me to look and see those people lost. Now we have COVID. I've lost several people to COVID already. And there they are. There are the faces looking back saying, just don't forget us. So in my sense, it's a celebration of those people. There they are. They are viable. They thank us for remembering them. So it's another remembrance piece. And again, that whole thing is in lead crystal. Oh, that center is in uranium glass. So Daniel's actually putting a black light on it right now. So it has a certain vibrancy to that center, and I wanted that center to kind of pop out. So the whole center is cast in uranium glass, and the outer rim is that beautiful, deep, deep olive that I thought represented, you know, the Emperor Justinian so well. So this is a pretty serious piece. It's been a lot of museums, but it is so unbelievable. I love this piece so much. I'm my biggest fan, so that's probably always true of artists, I guess, but I love this piece. So
No, but that's great that you love your work. I mean, your enthusiasm and your feeling about the pieces is, oh, where are we going? Oh, I know where we're going. Okay.
Oh, I forgot to look. I got a couple protectors.
Okay. So,
So
we're going to show.
these are small protectors. I call them protectors because 35 years ago, I got a terminal diagnosis, and they said I had 1 year to live. And at that point, I was so young, and I couldn't get my head wrapped around it at all. Even at our age now, we struggle to kind of embrace it in our head somewhere so that when the time comes, we're ready for it. And of course, we're never fully successful. But at that time, the only thing that was making me feel better, I love those frames. The only thing that made me feel better was I remembered an aunt of mine who passed over. And I remember thinking that she was looking down and protecting me, keeping me on this side and keeping me safe. So when you see these protectors, I want you to see the eye of someone that you loved very much looking down and keeping you safe and keeping you on this side. The first ones I did of these, there was a father in Tokyo and his daughter had moved to San Francisco and they missed each other very, very much. So I videoed his eye, and her eye went to the dad's, and he put it in the dining room, and his eye went to hers. And so they would both be in their dining rooms. They turn it on during meals and feel they were being watched over. So I thought that was a great way. So these are called protectors. And I have them in my house. I think everyone, I just love the feeling of someone watching over me.
Yeah.
When I looked at it for the first time, though, it was startling when they were unpacked.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. He's about to say, we did an eyeball casting call here because I wanted different sexes, ages, races. I wanted all kinds of different people to get their eyes. So I have all these different eyes blinking, so it's to whoever. Okay, here we go. We're moving on. These are Michael's and mine's collaborative works. And while working together for 20 years, we taught this technique called deep relief dry plaster casting for, 10 years. All over the world, and nobody ever ran with it, and we decided we would. All right, Daniel, so let's talk about, you want to talk about, let's tell you what this piece is about.
The whole thing is books, because we love storytelling. So this one we said, let's be very literal and say, let's take books of different authors and titles and reference them in one piece.
Just popular books that we all love. So if you move in, Daniel, I'll do it. And you notice the raised imagery in the glass, all the way we cast these things, individual one-time panels. Okay, the top one, the title of that book, the color of the bird is important. So in that sense, which is this one, Sandra?
That is Goldfinch.
The goldfish.
Which I read, yes.
Which we all read and saw the movie, I might add. All right, this one's a little tougher, but that's a fly with a crown over him. So he is the
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. There we go. Who didn't read that as a kid? This one, we use Michael's Scrapito technique in these as well. And this one is, how many cities are there?
2.
So this is the
Tale of 2 Cities.
There we go. She always knows. All right. So this is a little upside down, but the bottom one are mice. The bottom one are the bottom are mice, and the top of those are men. So that is
Of Mice and Men.
There we go. There we go. One over to the left. There we go. This one is a tougher one, but one of my absolute favorite books. The first line of this book is known as the first line of feminist literature. And so this particular line that we're showing here is, that day, Mrs. Dalloway thought she would buy the flowers, meaning that Mrs. Dalloway was taking her life into her own hands and deciding her own fate that day. So there is Mrs. Dalloway in that first bundle of flowers she bought in London after she went in from her suburb in Richmond. Okay. Next one, this is Sandra's giant thumb. We used her. And so she is, where are you doing?
The hitchhike. I'm hitchhiking. The
Yeah, where
Hitchhiker's
you going?
Guide.
Yes, you have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe.
Yes.
This next one is a candid shot of Michael.
Yeah.
You notice the bolts in the neck?
Yeah.
So
And the happy continents.
the happy continents, there's Michael. That's Frankenstein, of course. And the last one is, there we go. It's a nest. There's someone flying over it. What is this one, Sandra?
One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Oh, it's just fun to have people come and guess. You'd be surprised at the number of odd guesses over the years.
So I guess this is mainly commission work that people tell you what books they would like.
We've done a bunch of books that no one was telling us at all. We just put in lots of really popular ones.
Okay.
We did one with all science fiction ones. I mean, it depends. The fun part is this process. You see, you don't see bas relief in glass very often. So if you go in close and turn sideways, we are making these bas relief panels where, there you go, you see how much they protrude out of the glass. It's just kind of an interesting way.
All right. Yes.
We rub the inks into it to kind of give it the a continuity from all the pieces so that they all look like a singular piece. In the same way, like copper printing would give you those little spots as you go around.
It's very tactile. I mean, you do almost want to rub it and burnish it and say, you can feel it, besides see it. And also the way the light hits it and the shadows are formed on it. It has a lot of depth to it.
We love them.
Yeah.
So that was
I love that piece.
Yeah, I know. And in this particular gallery, it was the favorite at the opening. That's true.
And this is a.
I'm going to let Michael talk about this one. Shoot, go, Michael.
Well, this piece is called The Poetry of Everyday Objects. And we kind of wanted to take objects from everyday life and reconstitute it as art. We're drawn to all sorts of personal associations and different kinds of intimacy when you see each of these objects.
Wait, Daniel, hold on that broom 1 second here. I don't mean to interrupt, Michael. Look at the detail you get from this process.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like sand casting, but none of the sand. It'll even show a fingerprint. That's how fine and precise this particular method is. It's also the lowest carbon footprint of any kind of glass you can do on Earth. There you go. Go ahead, Mike.
So these are all the things that you normally dismiss or don't think twice about it. The objects you overlook, that there's actually a beauty to each of these things. There's something that if you consider it differently, if you were to really just say that, if walls could talk, but also if the coffee cup could talk, or the teapot, or
I love that.
Yeah.
I got that in Italy on my honeymoon.
And all these things have a voice that we just were saying that becomes its own, like a hieroglyphics where you're looking at this. And no, you cannot turn on that light
I know
switch.
Daniel always tries to turn that on all the time, but it does not. It's unfortunately it does not. It's not toggle. So
Like the hammer. And just go a little slower. Oh, there we go.
there we go.
Now, I do like just the concept of a glass hammer, just as the humor of that alone.
I like Yoko Ono has a glass hammer. I know she calls it her cloud hammer. Also, if you notice the backgrounds, they're slightly like it almost looks like granite. It's like this is an archaeological dig that we found these coming out of granite or marble. That's one of the things that it also brings the continuity. No matter which color, as you go through, they all look part of the same piece. And it ages each one that beautiful way. There's another paintbrush. I love the paintbrush because you can actually read the name of the paintbrush. I can't read it from here, but it actually, that's the kind of detail you get on these.
Really?
The 3-inch paintbrush, or
So how is that done? How do you do that? How do you do these?
We actually take dry plaster, no water.
so it's just that dry white powder.
Yep.
We build a dam inside the kiln, so you're taking making a box that you can fill with plaster, using a sifter and getting it very soft and screeding it level. And that you can bring up to temperature. So if you press an object into it, let's say a spritzer bottle or a tape dispenser or a garden hose, it's going to record all that detail as you press down into it. And then we'll load a glass blank on top of it and turn the kilns on.
And when the heat applies to the powdered plaster, the molecules expand just long enough to heat them and to harden them. And then the glass melts in, and when it cools down, poof, the plaster is usable forever.
Yeah, so we're able to recycle the plaster powder.
Okay, you can reuse it then.
Yeah, it's a one-time mold, so it's all destroyed when you pull out the object. But, you
But it
know,
was so easy to make the object. I'll take that little coffee maker there in the middle and redo it again. I mean, they're not hard to make these molds. And what you can do with them is staggering. So that was, we love the palette on that one as well.
Mhm.
and we just
I
like
like
the
the car
idea.
keys, for someone always looking for their car keys.
Now they know where they are, yeah.
Well, it's all the little things that you normally would say, these are all the things you overlook, the inconsequential things. There's actually a beauty to them. And
I
by,
totally agree with that. Sometimes we talked about this the other day. Sometimes I have some small objects at home that I've had for 30 or 40 years, things I use in the kitchen.
Oh,
It's
yes.
very comforting. My strawberry
Yeah,
holder.
you gotta have that.
I bought one. I've never had to buy one again. But it is very comforting to be surrounded by your household nondescript items, things that you pay no attention to, and elevate them, give
There
them
you go.
a little bit of glory.
So
beyond
we have all kinds of different things here. We have large scale wall pieces that we can scale bigger. We have, the small protectors, which are very affordable. So are the lenticulars. And then we also have some grand pieces, some of the big walls, some of the endless mirrors, Michael's trio of ladies. I mean, some of those are a little more expensive, but they're so staggeringly beautiful that they're worth every dollar. You can see the work going into all of them.
it's just gorgeous to be at the Ainsley Gallery. It looks so nice there.
Oh my God. I don't think we've ever had a gallery that
I don't
pretty.
think I've ever looked that nice.
Yeah, it is
I'm
so
taken
gorgeous.
aback at that.
I hope everyone here has been to the gallery because it is so pretty there. I mean, I would like to show there like forever.
There you go. Well, you were lucky enough to come to Toronto to see the exhibition. Michael wasn't able to attend the opening, but he will be coming to Toronto probably mid-July. We're just firming up those dates. He's never been to the city, so aside from seeing the gallery, he'll get to see the city.
It is a really adorable city.
So is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about your work or what it means to you? Sorry, I got a little dislocated with the screen changing. Anything that you'd like to share with us or to the people who are online with us, Michael or Tim?
For us, I think it's just we're so lucky that we've been together 20 years that our favorite pieces are after 20 years working together. I mean, we actually have more fun doing those than our regular pieces. I mean, they're just so much fun to work with. Also, we're so happy that someone like Sandra Ainsley found us and said, you got to be here. I was just so excited when she asked us to be there. So, sometimes in this world, things work out for you. And I've been lucky enough that they've really worked out for both of us. And I hope people can see our heart in these pieces. Because, I mean, I will tell you, I love my work so much. I cannot critique my own work. Because if I don't like it, I don't make it. So I have to really love a piece before I would release it at all. And there have been pieces after I made it, I didn't do it. But these I kept. And that one is gorgeous. Enjoy that in, what's the name of it? Waterside Cliffs in Long Island, whatever it was. Whatever, beautiful there.
And Michael, anything that, that you feel about your work?
Well, my works are quieter works. They're not as eye-popping. I do like to work with the abstraction of it. I do like taking it out of the formalism by making it a lot more contemporary and looser with the color. I will say, though, that I'm going to change the subject a little bit, that the collaborations with Tim are a bit of a surprise because I work in the studio a few feet apart from him every day.
He's so lucky.
Yeah, I count my blessings.
It must be crazy there. That's all I'm thinking.
Well, I'm going to say that we work better in collaboration on artwork than we do on the day-to-day business of a studio and running that. I know my automatic answer for anything Tim says is the word no. I will just say no.
That just spurs me on to make sure it happens anyway. I don't care.
So that's why we have a third partner to be breaking the tie break, because we will just be immediately opposite ends. So it is kind of nice that when we collaborate, we remove our egos and just say what works best for this artwork piece. And that we just say, if we can't explain why it is, we will show why we feel like it is, or give an alternate to say, really, it's the color palette that we really want to be an earthier one or a more punchy one. And we will have long-term discussions about it, but really propels you forward. So this is an instance where I really like collaborating. I have done some collaborations that are not as successful. So part of it is that we just kind of know what buttons to push and how to really express an idea.
And we
speak
both have
short.
veto power over every time.
Yeah.
No questions asked. If someone says that they don't like it, then we assume that there are other people like them, and we just take those out.
Shelve those for a while. Maybe you come back and visit them.
Surface at a later date at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think you got rid of them altogether. I can see you, Tim. I know you just put them aside and you bring them back in a year or two as if they're new ideas.
You see the storage locker with those in it.
Although we do have a new studio coordinator who
Oh,
just
yeah.
keeps on saying, what is this? And then out it goes.
If we're not there, she goes, no, they'll never miss it. So that's probably right.
That's funny. Oh, well.
Well, she's good, so we're happy to have her. So, you know.
Good. Are there any questions from our participants, people who have joined us? Anyone like to ask Tim or Michael a question?
It's very nice seeing several people we know here. We're very happy you came. Thank you so very much. It is always nice to see friends on these Zooms because it's, you know, a little nerve-wracking, but we're
Friendly
very happy.
face.
Yeah, we're happy to see our friends. And of course, Sandra's, I don't think I've ever seen Sandra not smile. So that's always good.
Okay. I might have my moments, but I'm enjoying this. I enjoy being with you guys. I mean, I know your work. I mean, we only just met, which is unusual. So many of my artists I've known for many, many years. So this is a new relationship, but via Zoom, I love you guys. It's been a lot of fun and you do beautiful work. It's work that's so unique. And I guess you've taken your own path. There's no one that's doing anything like you, for sure not your work, Tim. And I'd say, Michael, I don't know anyone else that is painting with powders or the collaborative work that you do. I like the idea that you have to think about those pieces a lot. It's not just something that's beautiful, it's something that you have to look at and give some thought to.
Well, you know, as who's the guy who ran for office in Illinois in the 50s? Stevenson? Yeah, when Adlai Stevenson came, when he was running for office, someone stood and said, sir, you have the vote of every thinking man in the state. And he says, frankly, that is not enough. Well, it's great that you're thinking, but also there's just an intrinsic beauty that sometimes you just see it and you love it for that, even if you don't want to think. So
I'm very taken with the everyday objects. I find that aside from it being a very impressive and beautiful piece, especially when you see it in the gallery, I like the feeling and the emotion about it because it really takes you back to so many different times in your life and to different people in your life. There's something in there that reminds me of my mother. So I do really like that series of work very much, very much.
Someone's asking if you're going to be sending the recording out. Do you post it on YouTube or how do you do it?
What we're going to do is everyone will receive the recording tomorrow and also a price list and images of everything that's in the show. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Good. I didn't see that question.
Thank you, Daniel, so very, very much for having us. I mean, we are honored to be there, believe me.
I'm looking forward to my visit
A visit.
coming up soon.
Well, if anybody that's online with us today would like to meet Michael, let me know and we'll let you know his exact dates when he's here in Toronto.
There you
I
go.
hope the sun is shining. Anyways, I hate to say goodbye, but maybe I have to at this point.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll do this again sometime until we meet again. So have a great rest of the weekend and thank you very much for sharing yourself with our clients and friends who've been on the Zoom. I really appreciate it. Makes a big difference.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Bill, for your thank you in there. All right.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Bill and Sandra. See you
Yeah.
later soon.
Bye,
See you
guys.
later. See you later. Bye.